We're discussing the new Bill C-11 at the federal government, and joining me is Michelle Simard and Kanisha Clarke. Michelle, just before we had to cut to commercial break, we're discussing who is the arbiter of what a broadcaster is. And I know it's really under the responsibility of the CRTC. But it's sort of one of those things as like, who gets to determine information and misinformation and disinformation? Who are these people really? Is it going to be a committee? Is it just one person? Do we have any insight into this, Michelle?
No, and I think it's likely because the bill hasn't been passed yet. And so until it's passed, I mean, to use taxpayer resources to start determining in like a model that would be employed to do this it's just not feasible. We don't have that kind of I guess taxpayer funded resources to figure those things out. So essentially it's play as you go. It gets passed. They'll then be the person, I guess the organization that determines it. But again, this goes back to some of the other issues that I, discussed with you on some other programs where it's just like, okay, that's great when you deal with, privacy issues and so forth. But it goes down to the nitty gritty. Who are the actual people doing it? Is it low level, mid, high level? Are these people properly educated? Is there a proper model and checklist that they follow to determine this? And is there a mechanism to appeal that decision?
May I chime in?
All in the dark.
May I chime in there?
Yeah, please go ahead, Kanisha.
So I think before they even made that decision, they need to understand how the platforms are used and how Netflix or YouTube are actually generating user content. What's the user experience? How do they actually put together these algorithms? There's a lot of issues around privacy and consent and confidentiality. All these things are things that we should be thinking about. So if you don't understand the lay of the land, it's kind of difficult for you to have regulation that you're saying, yeah, we're going to just decide who does what. And you do not understand that. So I think they're way ahead of themselves in terms of just starting to regulate an area maybe that they're not so sure of how the technology works and how it may play out and how it may actually constrain certain people that actually use the platform to generate money. And that could cause for concern, like you're saying, around probably charter rights and things of that nature.
Right, because I mean, who are these people? They're the YouTubers, they're the TikTokers, the podcasters. I mean, Kanisha, these are the folks who put out their content and I don't think they determine themselves as being broadcasters. They're just there putting out some thoughts and ideas, maybe making a few dollars out of it. So I guess I will say that how will this bill impact those amateurs, Kanisha, in your opinion?
Well, like Michelle said, they do have something where they're, like you said, you're going to a kitchen. What are the ingredients? And again, it starts off by understanding how the platform is used and how that company actually uses it. So those users, like what Michelle was saying was, oh, no, not the mom and pops or the people that are just, but they could be lumped in if they have certain brand deals. And what we call brand deals are sponsorship deals with certain people to produce certain content. Because they're supposed to be creatives, they figure out a way to market this to their audience. And that helps them to grow their audience.
Right.
So from a business standpoint, you're cutting into a lot of money, right? So they can have users largely that are just not Canadian. They're in China, who for all we know, right? Or they could be in the US and they're in largely
sunny Florida.
Right. Like, I'm not wherever they are, right? Like whatever platform they're using. And I'm just saying any country. Okay. If that's where your global, most of your subscribers are, then yeah, I'm going to be like, well, this is going to cut into my money now that I have to have content possibly that should be of Canadian heritage. But I want to go a step further. The basis of it, them using CanCon as the requirements.
And what is CanCon for our viewers?
Oh, it's like the place where they're going to be talking about our Canadian heritage and how they build criteria.
Our Canadian content.
Yes, of what is considered Canadian content. So if they're going to use those specific requirements to say, okay, this is what Canadian heritage is, this is what we're classifying as Canadian content, those people are going to have more educated people behind them, helping them to figure out, one, what is considered Canadian content? And if they were to upload that and all of a sudden they're like, oh, they're reported, how do we do that? Like, how does somebody even defend themselves for saying, I'm not, like, what do you mean it's not? Like, how am I, you know what I mean? So there's just so much awareness that needs to, or education that needs to still be rolled out before we decide this type of thing. It's going too fast.
Well, and that you bring up a good point, Kanisha, is that, until we know how these platforms work, until we know what model will be used to assess content, Canadian content, whether someone's a broadcaster or not, how does a member of parliament vote on this? If they don't have all the pieces of the puzzle, how can one actually make an educated vote on this?